Welcome to the Challenger series of Srijan Podcasts, where we invite some great minds to share the biggest challenge they have faced in their careers and how they solved it. Let us meet our guest for this episode. Today, I have with me Rahul, founder of Srijan, which is now part of Material Plus Group. Srijan is Asia's largest Drupal specialized company and one of the fastest growing tech companies in India, according to Deloitte. He has also been among the pioneers of Drupal in India and currently serves as a member of Global Drupal Association. And he also happens to be my first boss. Welcome, Rahul, to this episode.
Thank you, Arijit. Thank you for having me.
I'll ask you the question directly. You have seen so many ups and downs in your career. You have grown a company to what it is today. And I'm sure you have faced a lot of challenges along the way. If I have to ask you, what is the one single challenge that was really complex to solve that you remember, and how did you solve it? What would that be?
The most recent one in the last 4 or 5 years has actually been to get over my own inability and inhibition, fear of holding senior people accountable. It's been a nightmare for me, to work with, as I work with peers and sometimes people who are senior in age to me, and then be able to hold them accountable for outcomes of job responsibilities that they have in executing things in a manner which is sort of in line with the company's strategy, aligned with the company's values, and so on and so forth. How I overcame this is an interesting sort of journey, very grueling for me, honestly. And this is to do with coaching. So I've been, with a coach for as long as I can remember my business life. My guess is I first had a coach. I don't clearly remember, but I started the business in 2002. I'm guessing that I must have had a coach since 2003 or 4 or 5, something around that time. So it's been a series of different coaches who've helped me through different stages of both my business or professional and personal life. Largely, these have been business coaches, but nothing is purely business because finally it's human beings coming to office and work. So you have to work on the personal, especially on your own behaviors and all of that. And that's an integral part of coaching, whether it is for personal life improvement or professional life effectiveness. Most recently, it's been Ram Gopalan. Ram is one of the leading coaches in India of Marshall, trained under Marshall Goldsmith, under his program called the Marshall Goldsmith Stakeholder Centered Coaching, MGSCC. And this is about actually identifying 4, 5, 6, some smallish group of people who you work with, who are peers, who are junior to you, who are senior to you, a combination of all of those, and work with them in finding out what you need to be better at. Of course, my own self-awareness, via my own self-awareness, and because of feedback that I got from other people about Rahul not being able to hold his peers and, seniors in the company accountable. So after this happened, the first year of coaching, I was too scared to take this on, even though I had self-awareness. I took on some other things and whatever, but eventually came about to accepting that I have a challenge here, and I took this on, and I think I had to work through it for 2 years or more to be able to give feedback as and when the opportunity presented itself, of course, without being disrespectful or being brutal and all of that. I did a good job and I didn't do a good job because some people started saying that my feedback and my tone had started becoming very, very rough over the course of 2 years and very tough. So it was a complete change in behavior, which is sort of not natural to me. I started becoming very tough in feedback or in just straight talking. With peers, I think I improved a lot. I think I still miss the I wouldn't say sharpness, I would say clarity of communication, of easy communication without being too self-conscious. I'm still work in progress, but I've moved forward a lot. I've become way, way better. It's all because of my coach, Ram Gopalan, and continuously him investing in me and me, working, committing to work on improving this area of, I don't know, which was sort of pulling me back and pulling Srijan back because of my inability.
And when you were through this journey, I'm sure there would be some people who are finding that change in behavior. So, what was their reaction? Were they equally like accepting of this change, or they were adapting to this change, or were there frictions?
Actually, one of the challenge was in me bottling up feedback, and then it would sort of come out, not burst out, but really come out at any future point, in which case it's a lose-lose situation for me as well as the person who's taking that feedback, right? Because the person needs to improve as and when the incident or an event happened where the person needs feedback. And if I don't do it, firstly, I'm not fulfilling my job as a manager, and then there is no learning for the person. So as I went through this journey, I think people started appreciating me giving feedback as and when things happen. Whether they accepted, not accepted is a different matter. Sometimes they did, sometimes they did not. But like I said, with some people, it started becoming so tough and so straight that people said Rahul is turning the other way around. From being a person who would sugarcoat everything to now sort of being really tough in his conversations, it's just becoming very hard and blunt. So I had to learn to tone down also, and all of that also things. So MGSSC actually asks you to go back to your stakeholders and ask them every month, here are 2 incidents which I saw where I needed to give immediate feedback, and I did. Here were 2 more incidents which required me to give feedback, and I chickened out. So it's about self-awareness and telling your stakeholders, advertising with your stakeholders that here is how I'm improving, here is how I'm not improving. So it's a very humbling experience. It's also sometimes a humiliating experience. It's very difficult, sort of stepping down from your whatever high position, high pedestal that you're sitting on, and coming and asking people, okay, here is how I feel I'm doing. How do you feel I'm doing? So, and then people start responding, and they become aware of whether you're changing or no. And this change, perception change, takes a long time, 6 months, 12 months, like multiple years in my case, for it to really manifest and change in perception, in people's perceptions.
And for the listeners, I think this is something that a lot of people will relate to. How do you ensure that while you are transforming yourself into making senior people accountable, ensuring that you don't become autocratic in your leadership style?
Great question. So I have had this challenge of not playing God, not playing everything that I know is right, for the longest time. And so the natural me is somebody who will not be the smartest person in the room, will mine on people's intelligence, ask questions, and try and then consolidate the information that I'm learning. Firstly, I do create a consensus and take new models of thinking, new information that I may not know or I may not have, and then try and see how could we converge all of that and take it to a new direction. So firstly, I think from an openness standpoint, I do a good job of incorporating new ideas, divergent ideas, and then being able to converge them. These are strengths that I have. So how do I not become autocratic? And this is the part of being a business leader. Sadly, sometimes you have to be instructive, which has been a very uncomfortable place for me for years. And as part of this feedback and learning to grow and to step into my shoes, especially when I'm working with, a wide variety of senior people, leaders, I've had to build muscle in this. Autocracy is about that I am the smartest guy. Here is what I've thought, and here is how it's going to be done. Go do it. What I try and do is explain the reason of why I think things need to be done in a certain way. Okay, sometimes they are how I think and how I believe it is the best way of doing things. Sometimes there is no consensus creation, because very, very often, and I've seen, and this is where I failed at. In fact, I was actually writing a post on LinkedIn about this. I recently wrote it. When I've not built systems on how to do a certain job well, sometimes the tendency is to leave way too much to figure out for other leaders to figure out on their own on what is the best way to get the job done. It very often, most often it's effective. Sometimes, and at quite a few times, it is not effective. And this is because of individual people's their personalities, their learning areas, their gap areas, and all of that. And when those gap areas exist, you have to put on a different hat and be instructive in how you want things done. However, my style would be to explain why these things need to be done in this manner. And I think that way I would sort of not sound autocratic. Very often it works. Sometimes it doesn't with some people. So then I guess you have to wear an autocratic hat and say, look, I do want it done in this manner. Playing God and all of that business. But it's part of a business leader's job.
From the bottom, sometimes it feels that leader's job is very easy. And the way you have explained, it's actually a journey in itself and not an easy one. You said that you'll share a few more challenges, one or two more. Normally, we talk about just one.
Sure.
But now that you have given that offer, I am tempted to ask if you want to share something else.
Sure. So sort of connected, right? I mean, I would go back to 2011, 12, once again, don't quite remember the years, but somewhere around that period, 2010, 11, 12. Been a very self-conscious type person, a little inconfident person, from school days. And so, of course, I was in business and leading people, but that inconfidence about, myself sort of never really went away. I am still not a very confident person. I mean, I'm confident, but but that sort of muscle memory of years, or if you would like pranic memory, or cellular memory, which is perhaps gathered in this life or earlier lives, those tendencies continue. We had merged with and you would be privy to this, Arijit, we had merged with another company, and as new leaders, it was an attempt to create a bigger company, and as new leaders came in, I sort of started walking away from all responsibilities, sort of saying it wasn't me walking because of my desire to walk away. I just thought that the others were much better, even though I carried the CEO title. So I was very uncomfortable carrying the CEO title while there were some really senior people who were very smart in what they did. And so what I started doing was, no, they will take decisions in my mind. I was sometimes very unhappy with the kind of decisions they took. For example, we moved to a very, very swanky office, much like how we are now in Gurgaon. And the assumptions there were that, we'll be able to bring a lot of business together. Of course, all of that didn't happen. And eventually we were bleeding financially very, very badly because of spreading our finances way too thin than not keeping pace with the revenue and the profits that we had. And I think that getting out of that and the money locked in lock-ins and property lock-ins, I had to negotiate all that, plead, beg with the property dealers, with the property owners, and so eventually got out with minimizing losses. But that was the first year that Srijan made a loss, and we didn't have salaries to pay, and I had to take a bank loan to pay off salaries for 1 or 2 months. Yeah, and it was a terrible time. So I had to, like I said, take a bank loan to pay the salaries, and eventually we got back into shape. So there was a plan and worked on the plan. I guess so. Yeah. So yeah, one more incident that I remember, which was really, really hard.
This is an amazing story. A few years ago, taking loans to pay off salaries, and recently you were featured into fastest growing tech companies in India by Deloitte. So that has been a journey, and I think a story that you must publish as a blog.
That's what you're doing right now. So go ahead.
Do you have any closing comments about what leaders should do to get around a problem?
So in the first case, which is from 2011-12, one of the senior most people in the company is still around, Ritesh Gurung, actually, he had resigned that time because of my reticence to come forward and step forward and fix things and not allow Srijan's own people who'd been there for many years to sort of fade away into the unknown. And I remember him coming and telling me after his resignation that you're underestimating yourself. And that's when I said that, okay, I have to plow my sort of way back, claw my way back, and get back into action, because I've sort of given away way too much, and the company's on a downturn, if you like, both financially, in terms of cohesiveness of people and all of that. So what I'd built over the last 10 years was threatening to sort of survive. And so it was, so I had to try and, pick myself up, not undermine myself, learn not to undermine myself consciously, and take calls. Yeah, which may be sometimes autocratic or sometimes not inclusive, all of that, but I had to walk that path. I had to walk that path once again in recent years. Once again, a little bit of my reticence in, in being carry the CEO title with senior people, and also my desire to step back and have Srijan run with the new leaders in different roles. But I had to sort of undo some decisions, as recent as 2-3 years back. Very, very similar mistakes once again of I have this tendency of undermining myself on the one hand and putting people on a pedestal on the other hand. And so, just creating a problem first for myself and then trying to solve for it. It's such a waste of time, energy, but I keep making the same mistake. I've made it twice over. And hopefully I'll not make it again. So finding your mojo is, and recognizing your own strengths, recognizing your own ability to think strategically. I think quite often, at least I do, and I've seen a few people also, other leaders also undermine it. On the other hand, there are people who are so confident about everything they want to do with very little strategic thinking, very little ability to join the dots. Storytelling, very, very important. Being able to use the intelligence of people in the room and sort of take them along, creating consensus, also bring out conflicts. These are some very, very important things. And then, of course, there is grit and perseverance and hard work and all of the spiel that sort of goes along. So yeah, some of these things are important things that people need to have. Consistency, I find, in leaders, that's a very, very important trait. The ability to learn, find your blind spots, become self-aware. Without self-awareness, I believe that not many good leaders can be created. And I've met many leaders who are leaders in businesses but are not self-aware people. They'll go far, but like Marshall Goldsmith, like Ram tells us, that what's brought you here, you're here in good positions because you've done something really well. But if you say you want to go to much better places in the future, then you got to build new muscle. And that requires a lot of self-awareness, a lot of ability to learn, ask people, how am I doing? Humiliating conversation sometimes. And yeah, that makes people grow. And few leaders are able to do that well.
And I asked you for the concluding comments, but now I have one more question with what you said. So
Sure.
how you rate the role of a coach in a leader's journey to overcome the challenges that they are facing?
I mean, critical. Very, very important. People think that they are smarter than their coaches. They may be. I have no doubt about CEOs of large companies needing or being smarter than a coach. I'm sure they are. Tendulkar's coach, whoever he was, or Kohli's coach, the point is not about teaching Kohli how to bat. The point is about picking on his blind spots. What is he not seeing? Okay, Roger Federer does not need somebody to tell him how to become a better tennis player or to teach him how to play tennis. Sorry. But the point is that they're operating at such a level. There is loneliness. You have to understand, in every business leader, and at the top, there is a lot of loneliness. And you need people firstly to talk to. Am I doing the right thing? Here are my struggles. Somebody confidentially who you can share with, not only vent and vomit and all of that business. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about genuinely that here is what I'm doing, here are the challenges I'm running into, what do you think I could do better? The point is to be able to pick on blind spots. Am I too attached to an idea that I have, or a way of thinking, or a way of solving a problem? Am I too attached to it? Could there be two other ways of solving this for the same problem? Now, I'm not saying that Ram is smarter than me and he's done exactly what I've done, right? Or any coach has. I mean, the coach does not have to be an entrepreneur for being a coach to an entrepreneur. Correct? You've got to be able to pick up the struggles that an individual is going through, and then be able to help the person navigate via the person's own intelligence. So, coaches are sometimes about advisory, but most often about asking the right questions. Okay, and saying, okay, what do you want to do? Here are the choices. Who do you want to be? Okay, here are two ways of being and two ways of acting as a consequence of your being. These are very powerful and very important conversations. Okay, and enables people to make choices and all of that, become better leaders. So very, very important function. I think businesses and companies undermine the need for coaches. They think I'm the smarter guy. Why would I need I'm a smart guy, and why do I need somebody who's not run a business? It doesn't work like that. Yeah, Tendulkar and Kohli and Roger Federer, everybody needs coaches.
Thanks, Rahul. This was a wonderful conversation and beautiful insights into leadership and lovely stories, part of your journey. And thanks
Thank
again
you.
for being part of this episode.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. For more such podcasts, please visit our website